everybody. Welcome to Common Ground Conversation. I'm JoNeil Conley. This is my dear friend Bonnie Nussbaum. And we have been doing these videos every few weeks to have a dialogue and openness about some of the things that are happening in our world and in our country. And Bonnie and I happen to be on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and we have a lot more in common than we think we do. And that was
Absolutely true.
what started this. And we started it to give opportunities during the holidays, but it's expanded from there.
Yes, because
So
people are still looking for ways to connect across party lines. How do I stay family with? How do I stay friends with? How do I stay companions with people who think differently than I do? And it's definitely possible.
back up a second for people who haven't met us. Tell people a little bit about you and what brought you and all the things.
Okay, so I'm Bonnie Nussbaum. I'm a clinical psychologist of 40 years. Oh my goodness. And a holistic coach of probably 15 years. My primary focus was trauma work, and it has moved into thriving. How do you thrive after slogging through the difficulty of recovery from whatever happened in your life experience? And I won't say happened to you
Yeah.
because there's much to be gleaned from the crappy things that happen in our lives. So we can reframe them eventually as what happened for me. Yeah. Love doing online stuff. I've got an early morning intuitive guidance that people pop on every morning on Facebook, my Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum empowerment coaching page. And that's my gift to everybody. Let's start your day off well. And then I do individual coaching. I'm working on affordable housing projects all over the place. So just a lot of things in the hopper, and yeah,
And you have a book running around in your head as of
I
last week.
I do, and actually that's not unusual for me to have ideas that it's like, "Oh, this would be a really cool one." Last week, I partook in a free event through Hay House, which if you're not familiar with Hay
Mm.
House, they are amazing, and that in the middle of that event popped out this concept for a book, and it'll probably end up being more like a novel, but it'll be a teaching novel
Yeah,
kind of a deal.
sure.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah. And let me tell you
Have
about
you?
yes.
Yes.
I've been a registered nurse for a long time, but I've been a staff nurse, I've been a leader, I've been a healthcare consultant and coach for a long time. So I call myself a nurse, a coach, and a bullyologist. I did my doctoral dissertation on bullying in the operating room because I had been bullied at several places in my professional and personal life. And so that has led me down this direction of wanting to help nurses. My practice is with nurses, revive nurses, CPR for the nurse's soul. And I know firsthand what's been happening in the profession. COVID did awful things, not only to patients, but to the staff in that recovery place. I'm also trauma aware certified. So that's where Bonnie and I come from. And when we were
Mhm.
discussing about what we wanted to talk about this week, Bonnie she goes, let's talk about positivity. I said, amen, sister. I'm there with you.
Yes. And by positivity, we don't mean, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like the play?
Yeah.
We mean a concerted effort to look for the good in difficulty such that it sets you up for a much happier, more productive life.
One of the things how I like to frame things is in the words of homeostasis, meaning things settle down. We know that sometimes the pendulum swings this way, comes across the middle, goes this way. And our goal is to spend more time in homeostasis than on the other ends. But getting through those can be really difficult and can bring up some of the things that we are faced with in the current political and the environment of the country and all of that. So,
It's a lot of things. It can be you're having trouble sleeping. It can be you're eating way too much. It can be you're having a few too many cocktails.
yeah.
It can be you're avoiding people because there's so much conflict with them. It's unpleasant to be around them. And Easter approaches.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
we go again. So
That's
you might
true.
want to hearken back to our Thanksgiving and Christmas
Yeah.
posts because they might give you some great ideas in terms of
Yeah.
how do I deal with this.
And I think positivity, if we define it, is having the ability to see good to see positive, to see things because you related to it just a couple minutes ago when we talked about things not happening to you, happening for you. That's a mindset. That's a view. And I think that positivity is also a mindset. I remember hearing the story about the little girl who was going to get a pony. I probably won't tell her, but there was all sorts of poop and the pony couldn't get out. She goes, "I don't see poop, I see a pony," kind of a thing.
Yeah, what are you looking at? What are and we will grant you a little bit of grace here in terms of knowing that our brains are still structured to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
That had survival value way back when. The saber-toothed tiger comes wandering into camp, you'd better notice it and you'd better have a place to hide.
Yeah.
But that has in many ways outlived its usefulness, and we still tend to look through what I call the shit color glasses
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of, and I'm not saying we want rose colored glasses necessarily either, but at least clear lenses.
Yeah. And what
Yeah.
strategies do you use for to do that, Bonnie?
I will, if I'm working with someone and they're in their Eeyore state,
Yeah.
I will tigger them up a little bit in terms of, okay, yeah, this cruddy thing is going on. Let's say someone's in the middle of a divorce. This cruddy thing is going on. What are the positives that you can see in this? Nothing. I can't see anything that's positive about it. Okay, take another look. 5 years from now, let's bump you ahead 5 years. And I want you to look back. And what do you think you might think are the positives at that? You have
Mhm.
some distance from this, but some of the hurt has been healed. What do you think then might stand out for you as positive about
Mhm.
this?
And I also feel like something you mentioned earlier was there are realistic situations that are terrible. The death of a child, a terrible accident, a bad diagnosis, and we're not wanting Mary Sunshines in the midst of those.
No,
I, I
no,
tried that when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It didn't work. So
no.
we want to give people the grace for those kind of situations. But we also want to give people the opportunity or the strategy to look at their current situations and don't Eeyore yourself into oblivion.
And that's a good way to put it, into oblivion. Our mindset matters. It makes a difference. N- Not even if you're one of the people who don't believe that we co create our universe with the divine and we're drawing to us our own experiences. If you don't buy that at all, that's fine. But think about it this way, if you're driving a blue car, how often do you pay attention to blue cars? If you're driving a green car, how often do you see green cars? It
Mhm.
changes your lenses.
Yes.
You get to pick what you want those lenses to be looking for. If you believe, I'm just going to make one up here, all men are jerks, what are your lenses going to see? All
Jerks.
the jerky behavior and none of the good guys. We get to decide. And there was a question that was asked during the event that I participated in, which was basically along the lines of, is that line of thinking going to net you the results that you're saying you want?
Ah, okay.
Is that line of thinking really going to create for you the outcomes that you want?
And what do you say to the person who says, "It just is. I can't change it. That's just the way it is. I can't change any piece of this."
And if they were a client of mine,
That's
I would be saying to them, it's really interesting that you're here to talk to me then, because if you feel like nothing is changeable, why are you here?
yeah, yeah. Because
Somewhere under there, they believe something can change.
and that's I think the underlying belief that you can change. And it's not all hopeless. And it's not all there are tiny little things you can do that
And
add up.
that's the piece. That's a piece that I would like to, when I do a session, the first question I always ask people is, what are your celebrations? I want them paying attention to what good has transpired between the last time I talked to you and this time when I'm talking to you, because we tend to blow it off. I was talking to someone earlier today and she was struggling to cough up some positive stuff.
Yeah.
By the time we were done with the session, because I have my ears tuned to hear it, the whole section was full
Yeah.
of good things that had happened. And oftentimes I call it relentless incrementalism. It's a
Oh,
term I borrowed from social justice stuff. Relentless incrementalism. Make a baby step, make a baby step, make a baby step, get knocked back 2 steps, make a baby step, make a baby. That's typically how we make progress. We talk about leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds are the big sexy thing, but that's not
Mm.
usually how progress happens.
Yeah. And everybody, for myself, I use my personal faith that gets me through a lot of I grew up studying the book of Job. Good old Job, at the end of the day, it was okay, but he had a lot of crap to go through, kind of a thing. But that's one thing that I cling to. There's others, but I think everybody has to find that story, that thought, that ability to see past right now. That pendulum
And
kind of a thing.
yes, and interestingly, Tony Robbins has a theory that I think holds some water, which is the idea that when times are easy, when things are good, it creates weaker people
Oh,
because we're not challenged. We're not the idea that stiff winds create deep roots.
ah,
But then the corollary to that, or the other side of the coin, is difficult times create strong people.
yeah, yeah.
We may not believe we are strong, but we are, per my tagline, capable of far more than we think we are.
No, I do think it's worth a caveat to say if someone is truly in a depressive state, that's a different than what we're talking about today.
And even if they are in a
Okay.
depressive state, it is hard to motivate. It is
Mhm.
very hard to dig yourself out of that kind of a hole. But even what I would say to someone who's very depressed is even taking a baby step. There's a book that I love called Sync Reflections by a woman
Mm.
named Marla Silly. It's Cilley.
Yeah.
And the gist of it is if you can't mobilize and do anything else because you're so flat ass depressed, scrub your sink, polish your sink.
Good point. Good point.
And then applaud the heck out of yourself for doing that one thing. I got out of bed today and I went and did a load of laundry. Fabulous. That is worthy of cheerleading.
Do you see a lot of folks that are in that state, or is it the spectrum? What do you look at as the spectrum of that?
What I'm seeing these days is a whole lot of exhausted,
Yeah.
defeated, burned out people.
Okay.
So the first thing that I think needs to happen is taking a good, honest look at what are the things that are feeding that exhaustion. Are you doom scrolling? Are you watching the news?
There you go.
Take it- if you take a 1 week hiatus, cut off the social media for 1 week,
Yeah.
and then tell me if you feel better.
The other thing I've been studying a lot about is sleep hygiene because I'm not good at that at all. I mean, it really is an area that I need to, 9 o'clock, turn off the screens and get into the cool space and have a structure and
Have a routine because that will signal your brain and your body it's time for bed.
yeah. And my dearly beloved watches these war movies at night and all that kind of stuff. And finally, I said, I'm not staying here. I'm going to go upstairs. That's his thing. That's fine. He can fall asleep walking down the street, kind of a thing. Not me. And so sleep hygiene is, I think, something
Yes.
that is really, or for me, an area that I need to work on.
And for many people, part of it is the end of the day. What do? They're on their screens. Those screens are disruptive to
Mhm.
your sleep.
With the blue light.
So, right, within an hour of going to bed, cut off the screens. Be
Mhm.
done with them.
Well, and then the other thing too that I'm not good at is having an end of the day kind of. I'm telling all my stories to the world, but I'm not unlike a lot.
We're just like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
We've got our stuff.
And I think the other thing is corporations think you're going to be on your cell phone waiting to hear from them. I've had bosses like that. I sent you an email at 8:45. Why didn't you respond? Because I wasn't on the clock.
Mm,
And so I don't think we protect our space. We don't protect that piece of our lives. Now, I'm not saying you
yes,
should be an like when I was on call 24/7, then in the OR, I had to keep my phone on 24/7. But
yes,
that's different of
right.
having okay. And what I finally doing is at a certain time, I come upstairs, I turn off the computer, I go in the den for a couple hours so Bob turns those terrible shows on, and then I go upstairs. Ah, you know? But
Right,
I do
right.
think
What's your routine? What's your routine?
absolutely, absolutely.
I
And
also think it's very helpful to have a morning routine
yeah,
because your morning sets the tone for your day.
like
And if it's
when I
half an
couldn't
hour,
like when I couldn't find you this morning, my morning routine was destroyed. Where is like,
yes,
yeah,
yes, I was late today. Yeah.
but that's part of my morning routine. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I meditate, I journal, I sometimes do breath work. I will watch some videos that are uplifting. I've got Insight Timer on my phone, which I
Yes.
absolutely love.
Another good one.
Yes. And for those who say, I can't afford all this stuff, there are a lot of free resources.
There are.
Insight Timer is a free resource. You
Explain
can
what that
pay
is. Explain what
it's
that is.
it's an app for your phone, so whatever phone you have, you go into your app store and look up Insight Timer, and it has meditations, it has courses, it has guided imageries, it has just a breathworks, plethora of things, shamanic journeying, all kinds of things. Try some stuff. The same with the Hay House website. There's
Yes.
a bunch of free stuff on there. When you steep yourself in that kind of thing, it uplifts you and it sets a tone for your day. I have someone I'm working with right now where her work environment
Mhm.
is incredibly toxic.
Yeah.
And she's poo pooing me with regard to
Mm.
the harm being done
Mm.
because she's still in the middle of it.
Sure.
Once she's free of it and she looks back, I think she's going to be saying, like many of us do, why the hell did I put up with that so long?
Could we have a name? Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is laughter.
Hmm.
When I was going to when or, some of you heard the story when I was married to my starter husband and going to prison and all that. Leslie was 3 at the time, and she used to make this particular face, and it would make me laugh every time I saw it. It didn't matter what was going on. What's interesting is now Bob has got Kennedy doing this smolder look, and it's the same look, and it's
And
laughter.
yes,
It just
there are a lot of like the Simonton Institute in California that works
oh,
with people who have cancer totally supports the idea of envelop yourself in lighthearted stuff. No watching dramas, you need to watch comedies.
yeah,
Steep yourself in
yeah.
joy and
Yeah.
happiness.
Yeah. And the other piece too is if there are toxic people, set boundaries. Set boundaries. There are
Yeah.
just some people that aren't good for you right now.
No, and trust your gut. When your gut is telling you, "Ugh, I don't really like being around this person," even if on the surface it doesn't look like there's anything there that's a vampire sucking you dry, trust your gut. If your
Mhm.
gut is saying something's off here,
Yeah.
something is off here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. And in some of our previous episodes, we've talked about the people in our families and work environments and all of that. And that doesn't mean you can't be friendly and all the things, but
Right.
I'm all about bound barrier.
Yes. So
Let us,
you can imagine yourself in a semi-permeable bubble
yeah.
and only good stuff can come in, none of the negativity. What you send out is the good stuff. Keep in mind that from an empowerment standpoint, we are creating our own existence.
Yeah.
So if all you see out there is resistance and negativity and whatever, you need to take a look at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard. That's that shadow work, that deeper
Mhm.
stuff.
Now, for me, I am looking forward to spring because gardening, Mother Earth will absorb a lot of me. I mean, chop
Amen.
and do and getting your hands to me. Michigan right now is we got a gall darn ice storm going on right now, kind of a thing. But I've got in my mind, I got where I'm going to put stuff and plants. And there's just something about Mother Earth will
Yes.
absorb some of that stuff. And it's very healing for me.
And even if you take a moment to go outside and stand barefoot in the grass,
Yeah.
that can be a very grounding thing. One of the ways I look at that is someone once said that human beings are like little lightning rods, little antennae
Oh,
standing on the earth, and we're the
yeah.
conductors.
Yeah.
So we can move through divine energy, flush out any negativity into Mother Earth, who's very capable of transmuting that into something useful. Compost.
Oh, yes. One morning I told Bonnie in her show that I was standing in my backyard in my bare feet, in my bathrobe, on the earth kind of thing at 7 in the morning.
Yep. Yep.
And I also feel like find the things that work. Explore,
Yes.
experiment, find
Try
those.
some stuff. And even if some stuff doesn't work, try other things. It's just as valuable to determine the things that don't work for you as it is the things that do work for you. And give it some time,
Mhm.
especially if you're doing more organic, healthy kinds of things.
Sure.
It may take a little while longer to recalibrate.
So I think one of the takeaways I would hope people have gotten from this is that there is something you can do. You're not a complete receiver of all this.
No. And
You
that you are your own guru. You don't need a bunch of gurus telling you what to do. You know, but it's about quieting yourself enough to hear
Mhm.
that still inner voice that says, do this, not that.
Yeah. And my mantra is always do the work. Do
Mhm.
the work. Don't be a victim, be a victor. All those
Mhm.
little things.
Yep.
And we were hoping that you can get some sort of empowerment from this.
Yeah.
That yes, stuff's going on. There's a lot of things happening in our world that are
Mhm.
unsettling and what the heck kind of a thing. And you look at the storms and you look at this and you look at the political things and all those things. And if that's all that's going in, you're going to be a mess. Period.
Especially if you're looking at it from a 3D perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just what your eyes can witness or your ears can hear. There's a much bigger picture here,
Yep.
a much bigger picture. And sometimes the universe goes through some belches, wheezes, and coughs
For sure.
to get to a better place of functioning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those of us who are in this universe, take charge of the things you can take charge of. That's one of those ones where if you're successful at something, it's like that. And that's
Yeah.
a place of, ah,
And again, it can be little stuff.
Yep.
You might just say to yourself, I am in charge of picking out my clothing.
yeah,
Yay, me.
yeah,
It doesn't really matter how big it is. Just own that you have that decision point. It is
absolutely.
yours to decide. And regardless of what goes on around us, we still get to decide how we're going to feel and think and speak about it.
And I taught a class yesterday, and one of the key topics were you can choose to respond versus react. And I
Mhm.
think that's where you start to go, I am responding, I am conscious, I'm aware, all
Mhm.
those pieces of it. And I think the last piece, Bonnie, and I'm gonna push this over to you is get help. If you need help, get help.
Yes. And that can be a variety of things. It could be psychotherapy, it could be a group, it could be some individual therapy, it could be taking up walking, it could be finding a friend that the two of you can commiserate, but it can't just be sitting there eating it terrible, horrible, awful.
Yeah,
A true friend will let you do the white hot pity party for a short period of time, and then they're going to say, and what are your options? What do you choose to do here?
sure.
What would help you feel better?
Yeah. And in our show notes, we'll have our contact information. If you want to reach out to Bonnie, or reach out to me, that will be there. And again, it's not like there's nothing you can do. You can do things. You can,
Yes.
I always say rise and shine. And yet yesterday you said, JoNeil, shine and rise.
Yes. And think about that. Shine and rise.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to elevate ourselves, is through choosing to shine. Take the basket off of your light. Let
Mhm.
your light
Yeah.
shine. You have skills and abilities. You're here for a reason.
Yes.
That was one of the things that kept being said. We chose to be here at this point
Mhm.
in time
Wow.
because
Yeah.
we have a difference to make.
Oh, that gives me chills. That gives me chills. We want to thank those of you who've come along with us on this journey. Like I
Yes.
said, we do this every week or so, and we hope that we're offering some useful information and some strategies.
Yes. And please feel free to put comments below and we'll address them as they come up. But your yeah buts, your what ifs, the whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah, we're here for you.
Yes.
Mwah.
Awesome. Good to see you.